You are live on YouTube.
Okay, thank you. We are out of executive session. The only votes in executive session was whether to come out of executive session, which I think there was two, and I think both of them failed until the last one. We do have a motion on the floor.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, there was a total of 3 votes to come out.
Third. There is a motion on the floor introduced by Supervisor Bramer and seconded by Supervisor Runyon for number 5 that we've been discussing. So is there any? Yes, Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I am happy to support this resolution. I think that this individual, well, I won't even say that. The reasons were stated earlier at our environmental concerns and real property meeting, and I won't get into the merits of that, although we had only a limited discussion about actual merits during executive session. I will support this. Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Oh, Supervisor Conover, excuse me.
I think that there are significant process issues here in terms of what exactly, how this exactly, if it were going to be done, how it would be done. It may even require a local law. I will not be supporting this this request at this time. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Yes, discussion.
Just quickly, yes, I do want to note for the record that the individual was not in attendance during the executive session, and that there was a lot of discussion about process, and I will be asking for discussion on that after this motion. Thank you.
Okay. On the resolution. Yes.
Yeah, and just for the record that neither the chair nor the county administrator, that request to have anybody present at this session, executive session, was not made of the chair or the county administrator. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call the question. Number 5, all in favor?
Aye.
Please raise your hand if you're in favor. So like the Supervisor Runyon and Supervisor Bramer, is that all? Opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, there's 4 opposed and 1 abstention. Supervisor B. So motion fails. Number 6.
Chairman, before we move on, I would like to clarify what the process is going forward, because it was my understanding that this was directed from the Budget Committee to go through the Oversight Committee and then through Personnel and Finance. And there seems to be a question about the process going forward. So I'd like to put a resolution on the floor that we have all of these positions, any changes that we want to make. I believe there's a table indicating all of the employees who are not at who we may want to examine. And I'd like to make a motion that we refer it back to Budget Committee.
Motion made to have a referral back to the Budget Committee. We have a second.
Bring it to the floor for discussion.
We have a second by Supervisor Conover. Discussion. Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, just a question. Just so we're clear on the motion. The motion is that to refer this back to the Budget Committee and also, of course, to the county administrator and to the county attorney to take a look at all of the positions associated with this issue. Was that the motion?
The motion is to go back to the Budget Committee for salary adjustments of all those who are already identified previously. I believe there's a table.
Correct. So that you're asking the Budget Committee and the county administrator and the county attorney to review the table of all non-union employees and any issues that have either been brought forward or that may be brought forward.
Sure, any and all issues. I'm specifically asking for those non-union employees who are not at their full years of service according to our salary schedule. And that it would go through the budget committee. I'm not talking about the budget team. I'm asking for the budget committee to review those.
And, yeah.
Yes.
You need to speak through the
So
chair.
just a question for the county administrator. Just so we're clear on what it is that we're requesting. Are you clear on what's being requested here?
Well, I initially thought it was clarification on process, but what I'm hearing now is that the issue we want to look at budget is who do we have on that non-union table that's not all the way out to the step that they're eligible for, to just come up with who they are and to analyze each of them.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
thank you. Mr. Moore, I thought that that was already identified, the individuals who were not as far out on their step as they could be according to their years of service.
That's easily identified. It's just in a spreadsheet.
Right. Yes, that's what I'm asking.
Are we clear on the resolution?
No, I'm not. I have a question. And now within the process that we have, it is the idea that that identification and evaluation that you're asking, I assume within the budget process, be done within the evaluation process that we have? Or are you suggesting some other evaluation process? And if you are suggesting some other evaluation process, what would that process be?
Supervisor Barron?
Chairman, thank you. The process that I'm suggesting is that apparently this committee does not want to take up the merits of individuals one at a time. So I am asking that it goes back to the budget committee for an individual analysis of those people on the budget on the salary schedule. And yes, to my supervisor from Bolton, it would be a slightly separate analysis than what is already conducted now through individuals' performance evaluations. That is my suggestion,
Yeah.
that the budget committee conduct an evaluation that is slightly separate, although parallel to the individual performance evaluations for those individuals on the salary schedule who can be easily identified by their being not all the way out at their full years of service. Thank you, Chairman.
Well, Supervisor Conover?
Yeah. I'm going to have to withdraw my second only because what's being suggested here is that we abandon the process that we have and go to some other process, the details of which I'm uncertain what they are. And so now I'm really confused. If the motion is to revisit, I would hope for next year within the budget process, all these positions relative to any issues that have arisen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, no matter what those issues might be, that of course I can support. And I would hope that we do that every year.
Yeah. In the essence of time, I guess, if you're going to withdraw your motion, then unless there's another second, there's no motion, then we'll.
Yeah,
stop the
I'll
session.
have, only because now I'm very confused. I'm going to have to withdraw. My understanding is I'm going to have to withdraw my second. Thank you.
Okay, so we do still have a motion, or is there a second? If there's no second, then the motion fails and,
I do not, point of order,
yes, ma'am.
I do not believe we need a second in order to carry it forward. And I would like to point out that there is confusion because we came here, the matter came here to personnel because the budget committee said this was the process. I'm suggesting that we lay that out with a resolution that goes to the full board. If the full board doesn't want to do this process, then we'll turn it down. But right now, that's what the budget committee told us to do, and now we're going backwards. Thank you.
That needs to be responded to.
I'd like a decision on my point of order, please. That I have a motion. I made a motion.
She's correct.
We've always done seconds, but I'll stand corrected. I'll ask the county attorney. I mean, since I've been here,
That's a Robert Rules issue, I suspect. It's not in the board rules, and I'm not in a position to give an opinion on the Robert's Rules of Orders.
okay. Thank you. Our parliamentarian says that you only need a motion, so it's still on the floor.
Discussion.
Yes, Supervisor.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the process, this is the process. That's why we're here. That's why this is under consideration. Otherwise, it wouldn't be here. And so the suggestion that somehow the process isn't being followed, it is being followed. You may not like the conclusion, or you may not like where the process is at this particular point in time. That I can understand. You have a right to have that opinion. But this is the process. And but I'm prepared to vote on the matter, and I'll be voting no, because I'm not going to abandon the process that we have and go to some other process, the details of which have not been articulated or presented to this committee or to the board. Thank you.
Yes, Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Our process to evaluate employee service and merit has been around for some time. And I know that the team looked at it last year because of the issues with COVID, and we've done some things to address that. Do we not change it every year to some certain extent to look at the circumstances that exist?
Yeah, I believe, I believe we do. I think the general evaluation is kind of the same, but it's obviously different issues, things change.
So I'm not sure how we would change it, but that's my effect. Basically my comment. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on this motion? Mr. McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm a little confused because it was directed to me at budget of the process that we have to begin at the committee. From committee goes to personnel, and then so on. So I mean, we have a process and when we're doing it, and this is what Supervisor Bramer is asking for, is just to confirm that process. I'm a little confused that we're not changing because it was already been told that this is why we're doing it the way we're doing it today. Last week. So is that?
I believe the resolution is to look at all of the years of service on the chart, the top amount of years of service for each individual.
You're asking?
That's what you're asking, right?
It is what I'm asking, and that it is the will of the full board to go have that done in the budget committee.
Well, according to you, it might be the will of the full board. I don't.
I am asking that question be put to the board.
Okay. All right, are we clear what we're voting on? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor of the referral back to the budget committee?
Aye.
Aye.
3 ayes. Is that correct?
Worth the discussion.
Opposed? 4 oppositions. So motion fails. Okay, number 6. This is a referral from the Tourism Committee. This is a request to amend the table of organization and salary schedule to create and fill the new temporary position of principal account clerk per diem, hourly rate of $24.76. Position to be effective April 4th, 2022. Note. Let me see, April 4th, 2022 through December 31st, 2022, and defund the full-time principal account clerk position effective also April 4th. Note the Tourism Committee has requested any resolution resulting from Personnel and Finance Committee action come before the board at their meeting today, March 31st.
Make that motion.
Okay, introduced by Supervisor Wild.
Discussion.
I don't know, should we do seconds? What do you think? Seconded by Supervisor Frazier.
Discussion.
Yes.
Thank you. I'd just like to see if we could amend it instead of defunding that position to delete it. Delete the full-time principal account clerk. If we're gonna put on a new position, which I probably can support, defunding a position doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I say we just delete it. So I'd like to amend that motion to, instead of say defund, I'd like to amend it to say delete.
Do we have a second on doing that? On the amendment?
That was my motion.
Just Supervisor Wild, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure I'm in favor of that. Maybe Chairman to my left might add some more insight in terms of what this is, but we do have a new tourism director that we hope to have on board before too long. And the reason for not deleting the position is to really allow the new director to have the flexibility to decide how that person, he or she or he, would like to go through that and organize their team. So this just kind of creates that opportunity without deleting and creating a new position. I don't think we're changing anything with the budget other than saving some money with this. But I'm open to hear from other members of the committee in terms of what they believe we should do. But I can't accept that amendment right now.
Discussion on deleting.
Yeah, when this came up the last time, it was to unfund the position, but keep it as part of the organizational structures. Some of the supervisors brought up the point that they would be more comfortable if the position were deleted. Candidly, the process for refunding the position and if that were to happen in the future is a very similar type process. So at that time, I didn't have any problem with, as what I thought was a compromise, delete the position, and if they need the position later, create it and fund it, and let's move on. And however, when that got to the board, as you know, there was some discussion that the two positions should be separated, and there were new things that were introduced. Unless I hear a specific argument as to why the position should not be deleted, I don't have a problem with deleting it, because they're gonna have to come back to the board to fund it anyway. So they can just as soon create it and fund it. But if I hear an argument as to why we shouldn't do that, well, then now's the time to put that out there. Am I wrong in thinking like that? I'm sure Mr. Beatty would like to hear the argument as well.
County Administrator.
Yeah, just in terms of how this issue is played out, the last time it came to personnel, it came exactly like this. And the personnel committee changed the defund to a delete. The discussion of why to do one or the other occurred again at the tourism committee. And because the debate was whether to delete it or to defund it. And the reason why the committee advanced defund was out of a concern that when you delete a position, when you do go to create it again, it's going to require 2/3 support from the Board of Supervisors. And my personal view on it is I tend to be, either way is fine with me. I think if the new director needs the full-time position and presents a convincing case, they'll get 2/3 support.
Yes, Supervisor Beatty.
So I can't support this as is, but if we can add the word delete, I can support this resolution. And as we all know, if you're going to add a new position, you got to have 2/3 of the board. So I totally agree. The new tourist director comes in, makes a compelling argument that they need that position. I'm sure they get more than 2/3. But if they can't make a compelling case for adding another full-time employee, then they won't get it. So let's not just have it sit there in limbo as unfunded. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm for totally deleting it. And if we can't separate it out, I can't support this.
Supervisor Wild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I can accept that. My only reason for trying to make this happen is that the current person in this position is retiring, I believe, at the end of this month.
Yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday. We need that activity to be staffed by someone right away. So if it means deleting that position, that's in the best interest of what's happening in our tourism department. Let's do that, and hopefully we can figure out how to add a full-time staff if we have to do that in the future. So I'm fine with making that change.
Does anyone on the committee have an objection to deleting?
No.
Chairman of Tourism, Mr.
Yes, I
Timberlake.
would agree to delete it because I need Mr. Beatty's vote. Thank you.
You always need my vote, Supervisor from Luzerne.
Okay, we have a motion amended from defund to delete on the full-time position. Yes, Supervisor Bramer.
Likely the supervisor from Lake Luzerne does not need my vote, but I did bring up a question about this being limited to hours. As we heard earlier this morning, if someone in a position like this per diem works more than 30 hours, they're considered full-time. So I'd like to know if we are going to have any limit on the number of hours so that the person is not essentially working a full-time gig.
Administrator Moore.
Yeah, I can take that. And if I mess it up, tourism directors here, I discussed with Joanne what the expectation would be. And to do a per diem instead of a part-time, if you do a part-time, you got a set schedule, and a per diem is to call them in when they're needed. And Joanne's estimate is that it'll be on average 15 to 20 hours a week. At some points in the year, such as budget time, it'll be on the higher side, and at other times it'll be on the lower side. Is that accurate? Yeah.
Okay. Any other question? Yes, Mr. McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not on the committee, but I was involved and there was some discussion after the board vote on this. And can we put an average of 15 and a half or 17 and a half hours in there then?
15.
You know, because it would be an average. If you're going to be under and you're going to be over, it averages it out.
Mr. Chairman,
That's the question. Supervisor
if I
Wild.
may, thank you very much. That was one of my concerns when we first talked about this during the tourism committee meeting. And I don't know the details, but there's a certain limit when a retiree comes back that's participating in the pension fund that they can make. I think it's $28,000 a year or something to that effect.
35,000.
Is it 35,000? Okay, still less than what we have, but there is some limit in terms of what can happen there. And that was the limiting factor from my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, but there is some limiting factors here. There are some.
Can I address that? Because we did look at that a couple of months ago. It's not a limiting factor for the municipality. It's a consideration for the retired employee. So there is the $35,000 number, but the issue is an issue of what the employee's obligations are when he or she earns more than that number. And notice that the employee is responsible to make to the pension system at that point. So it does not limit the municipality in taking any action that they choose to take.
If you may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if we could ask Joanne, without objection, does she have any thoughts about how to limit what this might be over the years so that it could satisfy the concerns that have been addressed or raised?
I've spoken with Lisa Grant, the individual that's currently in that position, and asked her to estimate the time that she would spend moving forward through the end of the year. And she thought that it was 15 hours a week. I estimated to the county administrator 15 to 20 just to offer us a little leeway. And I think that would be well under the $35,000 limit, even though it would only be a partial year. She does not anticipate more than 20 hours a week would be on the high end. And if it's 8 hours this week, it could be 24 hours the following week if it's budget season.
Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a quick point. A number of departments in Warren County employ per diem individuals. Specifically, health services might just put a gone fishing sign on the front door of their offices if they weren't able to utilize per diem, particularly per diem nursing. Just my point in your deliberation is that you consider that there are a number of other departments that use per diems. Their department head works that into their budget that's prepared every year. And I'm not aware of any departments that go over substantially at the end of the year when all the numbers are added up. Thank you.
Mr. McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Even though I'm not on a committee, I thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am not against this per diem. I actually think it's a benefit to the tourism department, and also it'd be a situation, even if it comes to the end of the year and it's working out well, I'd hope we'd have the opportunity, and Lisa would like to stay on and keep going on this, because it is a specialty and she's been doing it for years. And I think it would help out that department and the new director, and probably hopefully it would keep more money in the OCTAX, since this is paid through, so we can give it out to the events that so we don't come up short every year and try to scramble around. But the other thing too is I've also heard of the fact that this $35 cap limit has been lifted by the New York State in the retirement. So, you know, from my understanding is that you can work more now and still earn your retirement. So that is some of the concerns that I have in doing this, especially for the more of the full-time employees, where, you know, we're bumping up their possibly bumping up their salaries, and they're getting the full retirement, which, you know, puts them way over the top. So even though they've paid into that, and it doesn't directly come out, and that is New York State, but that's always a concern that I have. So thank you very much.
Welcome. Any other discussion, or I'll call the question? Yes. Supervisor Sieber.
I understand that typically privilege over the floor would be the area for your non-committee members, and I'm trying to act in accordance with the open meeting law. My question is not to influence debate, it's to simply make an observation that when I look at the packet and the other positions that are here to be created or filled, there's a job description. I've asked in advance. I understand that my vote, much like supervisor from Glens Falls, will not make a difference on this, unlike my colleague from Queensbury. So my question here before you today is, why aren't we looking at an amended job description for a part-time position? Maybe you don't need one, but we should have one when we're talking about a newly created position and what specific duties are being done. I asked civil service for this job description, was provided one, which I also understand our county administrator sent to selected supervisors upon request. That job description was from 2004. So I very much would like to get behind this, but when I saw the revised 22 job description, in comparison, none of the language changed. It was identical language. So I think in the efforts of, I'm sure this board wanting to be transparent and accountable to the people, when you talk about how many hours, wouldn't it be helpful in light of the supervisor from Glens Falls request all last year to have job descriptions, to have one that would specifically say what duties are being done at what rate of pay for a certain number of hours to fill a need for a temporary period of time. I understand you don't have to go out and advertise for this, that you have incredible tourism employees that could fill this void, but why not have a job description? And without that updated job description showing part-time duties, I can't support it. But I would hope that everyone here, before you hire anyone for anything, you want a current job description that isn't 18 years old. And we've had plenty of time to do this. This vote failed last month. There's been sufficient time and multiple supervisors that have asked for it. Like I said, I haven't been called about it, but that's my 2 cents. And when we look at job descriptions and we justify hiring people, it's a criticism of the county that we don't go through this process. And it's disappointing to see here today that we don't have that included. Thank you.
Supervisor Wild.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but if the committee would be so inclined, I would not mind modifying my resolution to request that the tourism department update the job description within 30 days after this passing the board. And hopefully that will secure Supervisor Sieber's support.
Okay, any objections on the committee from having that added to the resolution? Yes, Trish, please.
Just to clarify the conversation we had earlier today, we do have a draft of a new job description. I think that Supervisor Sieber is referring to when she said it's exactly the same. So I wanted to clarify. So we have an original description from 2004, principal account clerk. The scope in general of that position has not changed over these years. We are updating it. As I told you, we were scheduled to update the financial positions in this second quarter. When I saw recently that the job description was in question, we forwarded to Supervisor Sieber the updated format that I told you about. We formatted everything. And so we have an updated format with language that hasn't changed. So that's what she had. So then I provided the 2004. Earlier this week, I have floated a revised principal account clerk. As I said to you, so far, I've only heard back from 3 of the agencies and departments that use it. So I did not want to bring it today because I'd like to give everybody an opportunity to comment, and then we'll have it finalized. I did speak with Administrator Moore about this, and he agreed that we should have it to you in very short order, but we did not want to release a draft update when we would have a final one to you in the very near future. So that's the status we're at right now with it. But it will not change in scope. It's just some language clarifying updated computerization skills, et cetera.
Very good. Thank you. Supervisor Bramer?
And Trish, before you sit down, is it not possible to have a specific job description for this new position that will be per diem versus the one that you're talking about updating for all of our principal account clerks throughout the county? How many, and I guess secondarily, if we were to create one just for this per diem position, how many others of those do we have around the county that could potentially be impacted by a new description?
So we can always create a new description. And the question is, do we need to create a new description? Every time we create a new description, if somebody is doing the same work and has the same duties and the same scope, having a broad job description provides an opportunity for all the different departments to get their positions filled. If we have a broad title like this, we have exams, we have lists. If somebody has a vacancy, they can either get transfers from other departments, et cetera. I know you don't want to go, okay, you don't want to go down.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm
that's-
sorry. I shouldn't.
So that's the question. I mean, every time we create a new position, if we need to, if it's a different qualifications, then we would create it. Typically, what we do in this case is wait until we have a new tourism director and look to create a position if we need to have a classification process at that time.
Could I just follow up quickly? My understanding is that this is a different position with a narrower scope of duties. That's the whole reason it can be accomplished in only 15 to 20 hours a week.
So the number of hours doesn't go to the scope of duties. So if somebody is doing the duties that are described in a job description, whether they're doing 10 hours or 40 hours, they'd still have the same title. If they're doing a different scope of duties, then we can create a temporary position. We've done that in the past. If there are duties that we need to do, the scope that the current principal account clerk is doing, it's going to be the same duties as I understand it. And if it is, and she's been operating under this job description on a temporary basis, it is a practical and convenient way to have continuity for the classification process. If we want to do a temporary position for some reason, I can certainly take those duties and draft one for you.
Supervisor Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not a member of this committee, so I appreciate the opportunity to speak regarding Supervisor Queensberry. He was absolutely correct. Last year, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at requests to fill positions, create new ones, et cetera, with all these dollar amounts. And I think it's only fair to the taxpayer that I or anybody else be able to tell them if they should ask for this $60,000, 35, I don't care what the amount is. What are we getting for that? So I definitely want a job description for anything, part-time, temporary, permanent, new, whatever. Again, I think it's only fair, and I cannot support any request that doesn't include a description of what we're paying for. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. One more comment. If you're running a team, if you're leading a team, you don't want to have job descriptions that are locked in so that they do only that and they can only do that and they can't do anything else. So it's important for us to have some flexibility. So my only comment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion on number 6? Supervisor Conover?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be supporting this and with the amendment proposed by Supervisor Beatty. And I mean, what our civil service person is saying is that we have a job description for certain activities, whether you work 10 hours or 100 hours, those are the job descriptions. However, if we want to modify our job descriptions in the fashion that's been suggested, we can do that as well. And that they would be happy to oblige. So I don't really see I really don't see an issue here. You know, they're not modifying the job responsibilities. They're not asking for the job responsibilities of the position to be changed. My understanding is fundamentally it's the hours that we're talking about here with some modifications that have been made relative to some of the newer technologies and whatever. So but I appreciate the comment that's been made by Supervisor Bruno, and if we can accommodate that, we should. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, last comment before a question.
I also appreciate the comment of my colleague to the right and would like to follow up on the comment from Supervisor Wild, who said that, you know, we could have a job description as part of this resolution. And I think that what Trish said earlier about a temporary position for principal account clerk is what we are looking for. So I'd like to have discussion on whether that's happening, and if we need to go into executive session to discuss the performance of a particular individual and the process for getting there, I'm happy to make that motion as well.
Mr. Chairman, I don't quite understand.
Yeah, I don't think
If I could
I do
ask
either.
the supervisor, within 30 days, which is my suggestion, that's not what you're hoping for. You're hoping to have it before we have this person come back and help the tourism department?
Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
thank you. I know that you said that, but there isn't any resolution on the table, as far as I understand, or made an amendment to create the temporary job description for principal account clerk per diem that would describe what this individual is actually doing and the number of hours per week.
Well, I haven't restated the resolution yet. So, and I do believe that so far we have an amendment to change the fund to delete, and we also have an amendment to request a per diem principal account clerk position job description within 30 days of the passage of this resolution. Yes, Mr. Conover.
Yeah, I mean, let's understand the request here, and I frankly, Senator, I applaud you for your willingness that if really what the request is to go through all our job descriptions and to, I guess, create a I would almost think it would be, it could even be universal, but if it's not universal, that an individual description for each and every temporary. So for example, we hire nurses full-time, and the nurses do the things that nurses do. But then we hire a nurse part-time, but we're going to have a different job description now for that nurse. I guess it's going to say somewhere in the job description, it's not that the description necessarily changes. It's just, it says, well, they're being hired on a part-time, not a full-time basis. And maybe we use that as an opportunity to update if, like, for example, there's a job description that doesn't include being able to operate word processing. It says, it's an old one, it says typing. But if I understand the discussions being made here today, that we're asking civil service to go back through all the job descriptions and to create temporary job descriptions for each and every one of those descriptions, because I don't know why we would take a principal account clerk and create a temporary job description for principal account clerk. Wouldn't we create one for example, planner? Wouldn't we create one for associate planner? Wouldn't we create one for GIS operator? Wouldn't we create one for, I mean, I don't want to labor the point, but I mean, I think that what civil service is saying is that they would be happy to respond to this with an individual job description. I applaud them for that. If for some reason a supervisor can't bring themselves to support this and to keep the department operating and to support the department head and the organization that they have, I understand that. That's your right to cast that vote in the negative. I appreciate that. But I just want everyone to understand that each position has a job description, and the fact that the person's temporary is more associated with how much time they're spending in that position. But we're going to do that for all our positions, and I guess we can do it for all our positions. I'd like Ms. Nenninger to respond to that.
I have two clarifications, and I'm happy to speak to whoever would like to speak to the whole classification process. Most people find it really valuable not to have me speaking for too long. So, but I really, it's a complicated process, and I'm happy to work really hard to satisfy all your needs. What I can tell you right now is that, number one, last year this question came up about job descriptions and the process. And we endeavor to, and if we've missed some, then we will work harder to attach the current job description of every notice of intent to fill our office signs off on. And we sign off on every single one of those. So if the job description didn't come up, then we will work harder to make sure that it is attached to every single one. Yes, as I described, some of them are quite old. We have put them all in a revised format, so they look like they're in a newer format, but we have revision 2022 through it to clarify that it is still the same language, because it's a very large class plan. We have a very small office. I'm the one who's doing all of them. So we did a huge number of them through budget. This one we did this week, and I have a draft which I can make a copy and give you all before you leave. As I said, we've had multiple department heads sign off, think the language is good. You can look at it. If you don't think that it meets what the position in tourism is doing through the end of the year, then we have, and we could create a separate job description. Do we have to? We don't have to. We can use this job description on a temporary basis. The scope falls within that, as I understand it. If I don't have the duties, we will work and clarify it. We are working on all our job descriptions, and if you have specific priorities, let me know, because we are doing it. We also have to work, you have to remember, with the departments, and this is a lot of work for them too. So last week, 2 weeks ago, I talked to Kevin Hajos, and we have been waiting for a time when we could both work on all his highway positions. We've looked at his buildings and grounds on an initial basis. We're going to look at them with him over the next several weeks and then send it out to all the towns and schools and see what the comments are. So it's a process that involves a lot of people. And if we're going to do it, we're going to do it well. So if it's a little bit slower than you want, please suggest to me your priorities. We're doing everything we can. I'll make a copy of this principal account clerk draft and have it to each of you before finance.
Thank you, Trish, and thanks for your review of your report this morning. Any other discussion? I'm going to call the question on number 6. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposition, opposed,
I'm gonna abstain.
and we have 1 abstention. Number 6 passes. Okay, the next items are pending items. Personnel, formalization of a policy for the Employee of the Month program. I don't believe that we have any update for that.
Well, my office has finished rather extensive legal research. I need to, I believe the best course of action is to take that research and put it into an opinion that I can issue to the entire Board of Supervisors, which will provide options for the board to consider in this area of Employee of the Month.
Thank you. Number 2 is the Warren County Workplace Violence Policy review and updates. I believe that is the same circumstances.
There's been no further action on that.
And number 3 is discussion regarding amending the Warren County Travel Education and Vehicle Use Policy. I do believe we do have a proposed changes to our county travel education and vehicle use policy. I don't know if everyone's had a time enough to review it. If you would like, we could delay this until next month and everybody will have proper time to review it and read it.
Mr. Chairman, I would say for the sake of time that we deal with whatever action items are required in the balance of the agenda. And if there are none, then I would move to adjourn.
Okay. How's the committee feel about the travel policy?
If I may suggest, I can give a brief executive summary of Section B, which was the primary section that was changed. This committee did ask for a red line version to track changes, which I think is a difficult version to follow, which is why a clean copy was also provided this morning to the members of the committee. In essence, the way the proposal for the travel policy is drafted, starting with the old policy, anything that was $100 or more required an approval process, and even free trainings online required some more formal approval process. So when you look at Section 1B, there are 9 subsections. The first subsection basically says if it's free to the county, the department head gives approval. The second item is if the expense is under $500 and in the county, in the department's budget, meaning that it's in the appropriate object code. That means the department head and the department have budgeted for that expense, and the recommended approval would be the department head. Number 3, if the expense is $500 or more, but it also went through the budgeting process and the funds are in the appropriate object code, then the approving authority would flow from the department head, the county administrator, to the committee chair. The fourth item, or the fourth listed circumstance, is an expense that's under $500, which is not budgeted for. That would follow the same process, meaning the ultimate approval authority that's being recommended would be the committee chair. Number 5, for all job-related educational opportunities that require travel and are more than $500, it would require a board resolution. Number 6, the approval authority for supervisors would be the chair of the Board of Supervisors. Number 7, none of these provisions would apply to NISAC meetings, the 2 annual meetings. Number 8 and 9 are just reporting requirements so that the department would report any expense under this provision that's over $500 at the next committee meeting. And any expense under number 9 for a supervisor would be reported to the board at the next Board of Supervisors meeting. So basically the distinction throughout the policy is 1, $500, and 2, has it already been reviewed in the budgeting process and approved? With the goal being to provide more oversight based on expense when it's an unbudgeted or there's not sufficient funds in an object code for that department to cover that expense. I do recommend that if it's agreeable, that the committee take time to review both the red line and the clean version, and I will email PDF versions to the committee this week if they choose not to move forward on the proposal today. There's other changes throughout too. That's really the big core. We incorporated additional provision for the public defender to use official vehicles, which has come before the Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee, and some other minor changes as well throughout.
Yes, Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion if we haven't had a motion to bring this to the floor.
We have a motion to bring it to the floor. Guess we need a second by Supervisor Conover.
I'm good to go with these.
Okay. The clerk of the board did mention to me that there is something that's been put back in here that that the board has previously removed. That was okay. It's the book. It's the board resolution. Previously, the board had removed any requirement of a board resolution for any travel. And now we have it back in over $500.
And that was certainly, I apologize, that was my misunderstanding on that point. I tried to clarify that, and I guess I still didn't quite get it based on past practice. So thank you to the clerk for catching that.
Supervisor Bramer.
I appreciate the work being done on this. I would like more time to review it and make sure that I understand all the changes. And given the lateness of the hour, I would ask my colleagues for consideration in tabling or laying it on the table or whatever. Probably tabling to the next.
Is that a
personnel
motion
meeting.
to table?
Mr. Chairman, I'll remove my motion. It makes sense. It's only a month and it's not something critical.
Right, I agree.
I was the second.
Okay. Everyone else okay with that?
Thank you.
All right. That'll give us time to properly read it 3-4 times. Let's see, and number 4 is a committee to consider developing guidelines for department heads to use when dismissing an employee. And I don't believe we have accomplished that yet either. There's no other items from the civil service, human resources, clerk of the board, or county attorney. And number 5, or section 5, is position authorized for filling by standing committee since the last meeting. I believe you can all see what that is. Number 6, section 6 is privilege of the floor. Mr. Lehman, do we have any comments from YouTube?
Hi, Chairman Thomas. No, there is no commentary on YouTube.
Thank you. Any other privilege of the floor? Motion to adjourn. Moved by Supervisor Conover, seconded by Supervisor Frazier. Any discussion on adjournment? All in favor?